How many of these?
So with Paul News and Fergal. Okay. Everybody, okay. Now the raffle. There's been a bit of an incident with the raffle. Yeah. Okay. Everyone, it's difficult for me to talk about the raffle because you would think they couldn't fuck up the raffle. So here's what's happened with the raffle. We sold out of the tickets, but we're DIY. So there are now limited edition collectors handmade tickets. So Deirdre and Miriam are hand making the tickets. So yeah, I don't know where life has taken you. That you thought someday I'll probably be out on a Sunday night applauding people who are handwriting graphic tickets. But that's what you've done. That's what you've done. So you've a lazy life. So, when we started researching the underground, I just went there and I just assumed it must have been there forever and just I discovered it. But it does have an opening date, it has a closing date, and what we're doing with the pop archive is we're constructing a database of every gig that took place. We've got 1,600 gigs in the database, but that's only a third of them. So it's difficult to find out. Normally Jeff would have the weekend ones, or if you were doing a residency, they were documented. But the absolute best place for finding out what gigs took place was in the Dublin event guide. Yeah, some of you remember that. Okay, yes. And here's a great thing. Irish people are amazing. So the publisher of the Dublin event guide, Kieran Owens, who managed the Virgin Prunes as well, really good guy. He wanted them to go to somewhere. He one copy of every single edition, the collection. And I want them to go to somewhere where they're going to be available for the public for research. So he gave them to an archive in Dublin, not ours, and then we had a meeting with that archive because they're great. And at the end of the meeting, the people in the archive said, "Oh, it's a pity you didn't come in last week." We said, "Why?" Because Kieran Owens gave us a copy of every single issue of the Dublin event guide. I said, "You're kidding? That's incredible." And I said, "Yeah, we put them in the recycler." Now, they didn't look through them first. But so they're gone. But that's a piece of Ireland's cultural history that's gone. Now, I can tell you, there's sadder stories. We won't go into that. But the underground scene gave an opportunity to bands from Sligo, to bands from the north and primarily Dublin bands. Cypress Mine from Cork were one of my absolute favourites. Intoxicated. Yeah, cool. Yeah, actually, I have to point out that was Tony O'Donoghue, who was the manager, and probably still is. No, they're absolutely fantastic band, Intoxicated Rhythm Section from Carlo. So a load of bands got opportunities thanks to Jeff, who was, when he started, he was too young to allow in. So it really was youth culture, DIY culture. So, Fergal, because of where you're sitting, where did music come into your life as kind of a listener, as a consumer? What were you listening to?
I had two older brothers, so they were kind of buying records before me. So I was listening to records when I was like 8 or 9. I had like Bowie stuff and then even we used to go visit the uncles down in Glasgow. They used to have Beatles records, so I still have those original kind of white album stuff. So we played out, oh, Fox now. But we play them, and then we would get a lot of stuff like T-Rex and, you know, they're probably, the Beatles read and do well, probably remembers from those times where, so that's kind of what it was, and I just got into the whole, we shared a bedroom, so we had this big table, and all the records were just kind of thrown on the table, so we just kind of root around, stick one on, and I just loved it, you know, and we just got into this whole thing. So I bought, my first thing I bought was Starman, it was probably 71, and Popcorn the Hopper, just to make it not so cool. And so I bought those two with birthday money or something, but I started getting into it, and I never stopped listening. So I was into that kind of stuff early, then I got into a lot of old kind of 50s rock and roll for some reason, I don't know why. Like Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran and all that stuff. So I spent a lot of time listening to all that until kind of the 77, the punk rock thing came in. So, but every night, because sometimes people go, oh, punk rock, and then I never listened to it, and so I kind of kept listening to the other stuff. And even when I looked at the Clash, because I listened to Gene Vincent, I said, oh, it's like fucking Gene Vincent, isn't it? And it was. It's just another way of fucking, you know, saying what you feel and how you want to express it and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool about it. So, and I kind of did that, and then I started wanting to kind of make my own music, I suppose. Yeah. So that's sort of same as my guitar, things like that. So those things, you know, just got crappy guitars on HP. And that's when I started, yeah.
So you go from listening to singles, the Beatles in Rialto, Bowie, then comes along, because you've got the root of the 50s, you know, that raw sound. And like, were your school, your brothers were supportive, but did you have school friends with the same text?
No, not at all. I mean, most people don't give a fuck about anything apart what's like recent now, what's on the charts now. So, you know, I listened to all that stuff as well. But no one knew who Gene Vincent was, and you know, that's just the way it was. So I mean, I'm this weird guy who like started doing hair like that, and you know, it's just, you know, it's not a thing. So you kind of, it's a lonely thing, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, but that lonely thing is kind of fuel for finding your trying. So where did you find your musical trying?
Well, I mean, I grew up just a couple of doors out from Dave, and singer in the band, so we kind of get into all this stuff together. Okay. So that was kind of, when I say it was lonely, it wasn't alone, it was like, there was that, and then you'd be the odd person who was into kind of some stuff where a friend or brothers might be half into something, low a tape of Jerry Davis somewhere, do you know what I mean? You know, that's really cool, you know. And you're kind of just putting all this stuff together, do you know what I mean? So you're putting the bits of T-Rex in with the bits of Gene Vincent, and you're putting with bits of just shit you've heard, you know what I mean? The Doors, you know what I mean? All these kind of things that just come across. Or historical, but to me, like the Doors would be, and the big one would be, for me was like the Velvets, where that just became this huge thing, and that kind of changed everything for me in my head, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
And, you know, so you had an ally, you found a musical ally, and did you encourage each other then to actually start making music? Right?
Yes, very much so. Like even like before we could play or had any instruments or play any instruments, like we might just bash on things of metal and kind of sing along really badly to it, like an ABBA song, but like in a kind of Johnny Rotten kind of voice, just to see what it sounded like. You know what I mean? What's that going to do? And just kind of getting interested that way. Then we kind of, I don't know, my sister was learning to play guitar and she really wanted it, so I kind of took that guitar off her and I just started playing it myself. Then we had another friend with a guitar, and I've never had a lesson. It's just like I had to discover something and I show the other two, and then they discover something and show me, and that's really how I've continued doing that for my whole life. And just you learn little things off people, and then just you use it and adapt it to your own kind of aesthetic.
So you're playing music, you're encouraging each other, but the next thing is to find an audience, is to get up on stage. So what were those early moves?
Yeah, just we were before the house, we were in a band called Last Chance, basically, and we just kind of we wrote songs, we rehearsed in the garage in Greenhouse, and just kind of before, like I was saying, like Underground wasn't open, so there was no venue where you could really just be a really bright band. So you're basically looking at places like that. We couldn't fucking go up to the library and just laugh at us and show us out, you know what I mean? So we just kind of rehearsed and played songs. We were playing places that we used to pubs and we kind of Tommy Jones having a bar on the street, and you know, just hotels sometimes as well, just any old shit, you know what I mean? And we kind of just kind of fumbling around because we didn't really know. And then we just had this kind of, I suppose, at one point we just had this kind of thing where like, fuck it, let's just take this thing seriously, you know what I mean? And we actually lost one member of the band, and we got another one, and we said, fuck it, let's get out of the fucking, let's get out of Green, let's go to fucking rehearse in town, started rehearsing in Temple then. And that was it really. We started to call ourselves a house, which we had this idea for another, there was actually someone else had this band with like 15 people or something. We thought a house would be great and for a band like that because it's just like full of people, right? So they didn't want it, it was stupid, right? And it is probably the stupidest name in the history of the world. If you want to research a house, fucking good book on the internet. An expert in real estate, never mentioned the world. But we said, fuck it, we'll do that, and which we've kind of repeated throughout our glorious career. Yeah. We'd say, no, that's a fucking stupid idea, let's do it. Right. But, and then we started writing sort of brand new songs, and we kind of, the instrumentation changed. I was playing electric guitar on the own, so it changed how I played. Because before that we had 2 electric guitars, and if you had 2 electric guitars, you play different, you play off each other and all that stuff, which is kind of cool as well. But this was kind of more shit, and we just sort of changed the sound that we were doing, and then so we just, and that's what it was. We started playing like that, and it was like in Temple Bar, it was just like, obviously it was before Temple Bar, it was like we were getting ready for, obviously just like a derelict. If you walked into the Temple Bar pub, there was 4 blokes playing there. That's what it was. Yeah, and just full of artist studios and places to create. It was really cool. Really good, and a great atmosphere. Kind of you could wander in it, just kind of. And that's what we did. Just kind of immerse ourselves in all that.
Yeah, and the underground scene would have been different if the rehearsal studios hadn't been down the lane.
It was literally down the lane, and like we were rehearsing one day, and Jeff came down and said, "We're going to do a gig on Wednesday."
So Jeff offered you the gig, you didn't.
It was a port, like, we did it.
Yeah. But this is how the
we wanted the headline, but
yeah. And then how long did it take you to go from being a support? Because you recorded maybe more than a lot of your contemporaries. You went into studios to record the demos.
We did. Recorded a lot of demos with Chris O'Brien's here. Yeah. Chris is here. So we did, but yeah, no, we did a lot of demos and stuff, and we did one very early. We did one Freak Out very early, and I think we just wanted to get a fucking move on, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Let's not fucking play around. So we went to record it, we played. That first gig we played with Jeff, and then we kind of talked to him, so we do this. You know, Jeff was kind of, you know. But great, and we basically started the headline, and he'd give you a fucking Tuesday or something, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Great. And then we'd work our way up to the weekend, work our way up to doing it every Saturday. You know, that's what we did.
Fantastic, and
but again, you're right. Because it was right beside it, and
yeah,
you know, and as I was saying, and like someone was saying earlier, when Underground kind of started, but the Underground was kind of like year zero for us as well, because like it made the bag in scene antiquated. Yeah. Like, what the fuck would I be going in there for? Do you know what I mean? Look at this fucking shit. I love it. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it was. Like, the bag was very professional and all the lights. This is just this fucking room. And what was great was our room. Not our room, always, but it's all our room. Do you know what I mean? It was like, and there's so many bands.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that's the best description of it. It wasn't our room, but it was our room. It was all of our rooms. And you know, you're a band that probably saw the most there. So you know, when I think of the house, no offense to the other fine.
No, but we played a lot there, and we played our first gig in '95. I think we played our last gig in '87 or something. But you know, we were there a lot, and it was kind of cool, and like we saw a lot of people, and I think when it started, like you were saying earlier, it was mostly Dublin kind of bands and Stockholm and all so, but eventually it became such a thing, because we started, there was no underground scene when we started playing there. Like, we didn't give a fuck about anything. I don't know, maybe, I think the Stars might have played there, but no, we didn't know anyone had played there. And so we just started playing, and then I suppose when you see the 6-track EP, that's kind of the first wave of bands that became kind of, I suppose, that started that scene, you know what I mean? And it's great, it's documented, it's kind of cool. And each band recorded 2 songs that night, so I don't know if Jeff has the other 2, so yeah. Because we definitely did 2 songs that night, but there's another project. But I think, sorry, just to finish that point, it's like where, and eventually without the scene kind of thing, we started getting bands come up from Cork, and Tony was bringing bands up to support. Yeah. And you kind of think, what the fuck is going on? To play support in the fucking, I don't know how many people in hell, but it was great. You had this fucking great night where we were playing Cypress Wine, playing the 33554. You know, it's just, And then dancing around the north, I tied the boy and Carter Joe and all, so just great nights. And fucking, I might remind you, it's a quid. Went up to 150 and it was more.
I'm still
150!
I'm still angry about that. I never went back. But Julie, it wasn't just about Dublin bands. So where did music come into your life?
I think it's probably a very familiar story in that it would have been records at home, my dad's records initially. And so Bob Dylan and Beatles, the Stones, Medicine Head, all that kind of stuff. And so, you just quietly go into the sitting room and have your time in there and go exploring and discover the music that you liked. But I think when I met Aideen, who's our trombone and saxophone player, she had introduced me to Finnegan Brothers, and they were looking for a singer. And I do remember Natty giving me tapes with 10,000 Maniacs, The Sundays, and Nancy Sinatra, all sorts of sort of an eclectic mix of music. And I think Natty and Eamon were really trying to educate me and get me off Aha and bands like that at the time. So I think that was a massive sort of influx of music that I'd never ever heard before. That really came from Natty and Eamon at the time. And then back to my father's records then, and it's kind of a mix of stuff.
Yeah, but that's intriguing. Did you embrace it right away, or did you think, I'm going to study this to get to like it, or did it?
No, I utterly embraced it. It was like really a whole other world that had kind of opened up to me. Yeah, it clicked straight away. Yeah.
And did it make sense with the kind of the Beatles records and the Bob Dylan and the Medicine Head stuff, or did it feel like you'd gone to a different world?
I think it was, yeah, definitely gone into a different world, as sort of a feeling of a more underground world, less obvious perhaps. And funny, when I was, I think after one of the first gigs that we played in the underground, I met Jim Carroll, the journalist, and he'd given me a couple of mixtapes, and on the mixtapes were Giant. And I listened to that tape night after night after night. I was listening to yourself, Niamh, and I was such a big fan. And so it was, so even that in itself, that you're hearing music from all these different sources and people telling you, oh, listen to this, listen to that. Yeah, so, yeah.
And then that act of performing, that act of being on stage, like how did that feel, and what was the preparation to be a band that plays on stage?
For me it was absolutely terrifying, so but I wanted to do it. I wasn't not going to do it. I wasn't going to be put off, but really we played kind of local gigs and pubs to begin with, and did a lot of covers, even though we had our own music, but we were playing what people wanted to hear in a sense, and then we'd throw in a couple of would-be songs in here and there. But I remember playing in the underground the first time, and remembering that feeling of going down in there into that down the stairs, the tiny stage, and first time playing in Dublin, and being really, really, really nervous. And it was such a tiny stage that we were really on top of each other. And I do remember sort of being aside, and then 2 steps to the right, you were on the stage. So it was just, there was nowhere to hide, basically. You were there, you were fully exposed, and but really thrilling as well at the same time. I kind of remember the stage being quite high up as well in relation to the size of the place.
Yeah.
So the stage might have been about this high, and you're just looking down into that long room. It was great.
And Fergal mentioned finding your tribe, or finding your friends who encourage you. What were you bringing to these people who were giving you the cassettes of check this out? Did you encourage you know, that process of, you know, giving music to listen to?
I'm not sure that I did. I think I was very young. I was 15, 16. It was all very new and eye-opening. So I think I was really absorbing a lot. You know, I think it probably took me years later to kind of really sort of have the confidence to sort of be giving back that knowledge in some sort of way, you know, where you kind of say, actually, you know, this is really good, you know, and even though I might have quietly thought those things myself, I would never have had the confidence to kind of say to somebody else, you gotta listen to that, you know. But yeah.
And in terms of the creative process, because you kind of stood out in that Dublin scene. There wasn't another band like you know, joint that had kind of been before you, but sonically they were a little bit different, you know. What other bands do you remember from that time of you were starting up or from that scene? Do you have any memories?
God, I should have thought of this now.
And I'm being mean, that's the hardest question.
And funny, I think if Matty and Eamon, myself and Paul and Aidan were the younger members, we were 14, 15, around that age, and you know, so it was, I think, in many ways we weren't even fully aware of kind of where we were, what this position we were in, or even understanding that this was such a short period, relatively, the underground, but it felt like everything at the time, you know. It was a melting pot, really.
And again, what a great way to sum it up. It felt like everything at the time, it was all you needed, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Niamh, Judy was listening to you.
I've listened to Judy all week, revisiting those songs, and they still are as amazing. I know you guys have a new album out as well, which I didn't get around to listening to. Oh my God, the Perfect Mess or whatever, and Hardly Ever Wrong.
They were great times.
Yeah.
So how would you start developing an interest in music? Were there records at home?
I used to play guitar. I played guitar badly for my own, you know, little hobby. But me and a couple of my friends in school learned off, you know, it was all like Simon Garfunkel, very basic stuff. We were all into our 3-part harmonies and that. And then my older sister was going out, no, her friend was going out with a drummer who happened to be in this band with the worst name, Dump the Dummy. But she said they were looking for backing vocalists, so me and my friend was going, but anyway, and we did a couple of gigs with them, and I mean that terror. We did one gig, I remember, in the bandstand in the scene screen, and Roland, the drummer, dropped his drum set. He had to pick it up, we were paralysed, we couldn't. And anyway, I think I did 1 or 2 gigs in the underground as Dump the Dummy, and then suddenly I was being brought to the fore as a singer. I'd been sing around, and they were like, "Oh, you can sing?" And I said, "Oh, can't I?" But still terrified. And I think we did a couple of gigs, and I went, "I can't do this." Like, I know of a gig 2 months in advance, and I would be terrified. And so I left. But I was kind of very quiet then, and you know, my music was sort of limited. I loved, you know, Depeche Mode and Thompson Twins, Howard Jones, all that. And then, I suppose 18, I went out with this guy, punk rocker, and that changed my world. It was suddenly all this music that I was being, you know, shown and given, really brilliant stuff. Changed my world, and actually, Garret up there, the best gig I was ever at. I was 18, I think, yeah, and it was the one in the Project Centre with the amazing Colossal, Dwayne Ripley, the Golden Horde. Oh my God, I just still remember it so clearly. It was brilliant, brilliant. So just everything kind of changed quite quickly, I think, for me, with the music influx, you know. So I wasn't doing anything. Anyway, basically, I don't know, Joe came back to me and Ken, guitarist there. We busked a bit on Grafton Street with Adrian Crowley actually as well, who's gone on to great things, and then talked about getting Giant together. I hope I'm right about this. That's more or less correct, I think. So yeah, Giant formed, and we just, I think we were only together for a year maybe, but we burned bright. There was a battle of bands coming up, and there was talk of us entering it, but we were never going to be ready to have any music, because we were writing. Joe had a lot of songs written, and then we got Susan as co-vocalist on board as well. We played, who went on to a house as well. We were up the front with our tambourines. That was our thing as well. We were playing tambourines. I sing in various bands on and off. I cannot play tambourine in time anymore. But the Underground was our baby. First gig we played without Susan was up in the White Horse, and then into the Underground. And again, I remember the terror. We could smoke in those days inside. I was bent around the mic stand, terrified, going, why am I doing this? But at the same time, I wanted to do it, loved it, but anyway, we did a lot in the Underground. I don't even know how many gigs we played. A lot of sports, and then we were doing our own thing. We did that Battle of the Bands, we won it. We got a single, our only ever release on EMI. But can I say, because I'll forget to say it otherwise, we split up, we didn't see each other for years, and then we kind of got back together again. We've written, re-recorded everything. There is a CD or an album ready to go on Bohemia called Find Me True. Now, it's really good, and I really hope it sees the light of day. But the Underground was our baby really, because we did play with the residency, the bag, we played a few other places, and like a house we shared, John Carroll as a manager. It was suddenly just all so just rapid ascent, and Owen McGowan, Tony, was just huge. It just imploded with, but look, these things happen. But I just remember 89, I think, was the year for us of just being down those stairs, my sister sneaking in age 15. That wasn't a problem for Jeff. She probably older than Jeff anyway. And my brother was in a band, the Killjoys. He played with the Banished. So it's all connected somehow. But great memories. And actually, just an aside, I was working in a clothes shop in town for years, and I went in Temple Bar and then up at the George Street Arcade. Anyway, somebody told me about this amazing Spanish restaurant called La Paloma. Down the went, who's there? The waiter, Jeff, running it. And it was gorgeous Spanish food as well. So, great to see him. And I don't know, that only closed down a few years ago. So it's whereabouts now, I do not know. But I have nothing but fond memories.
Now, how fantastic is it that you were part of a scene, that you did something creative, you got on stage, you entertained people across the world?
Totally imposter syndrome, but really I was like, what am I doing up here? I love it. I think we're good. And Jim Carroll as well, a great mentor as well. I remember him, poor John, riding his friend, and John's at the BMW, go through fog, I remember, and then Jim Carroll as well, just brilliant times, brilliant.
Exactly.
I only realise it more so now, especially with more photographs.
Yeah, there aren't enough now. People, will start. I was going to say a Bebo page, because that's a little while, but we would start. MySpace.
I came across an excellent article. Was written by BP Fallon, and it captured one of the nights that we played there, but it just captured this sort of the frenzy and the buzz that was around the Underground at that time, and it's I have put it up on social media. I'll put it up again. I'll share it with you. But it's such a brilliant piece of writing as well. It's a good one to have a look at. Yeah, send it on.
There's not enough documentary evidence and photos. And Paul, when we announced the lineup, a colleague of mine just said, the Whitney Boy gigs, the Underground, just facing that thing. Like you didn't hope, like you didn't appear to be playing to 60, 100, 120 people. Like, where did you get that creative impulse, and you know, how did your love of music start?
Yeah, so I suppose I grew up in the inner city, kind of more exposed to things like reggae, two-tone. That was kind of what people listened to. But I had a neighbour who lived across the road and had this fantastic sound system, a vinyl player. And I'd go over to him every week and feed me records of Smiths, Joy Division, New Order, and some of the stuff I'd give back and say, no, I didn't like that. I'd say, I want more of that. And he was quite a big part of my musical education. And then I suppose the second kind of seismic moment for me and Miles, who was in the band, we went to see Echo and the Bunbury in 1985 in the SFX, and just came away from that long way. We were like, we actually made this vow as we left, a silly little thing, but neither of us would play an instrument. But we said one day we're going to play on that stage, and I think it was about 10 years, 12 years later we supported Nick Cave there, and it was just a nice moment just before we went on stage. I said, you remember that night? So it was nice. We never got the headline yesterday, but still, we got to play it. So.
Oh, man, from Nick Cave isn't bad. But so you had that impulse, because there were loads of made-up bands in Dublin. Like, there were loads of kind of dares, oh, we should be in a band, but it never happened, whereas all the people here have. So you wanted to be in a band, and there was something about the Bunny Men on that stage that compelled you. So what were you listening to before that, and then where did you decide, well, I'll do that so we can be on stage?
Yeah, so I suppose listening to before it was kind of mainstream music, but as Mark, who was feeding me these records, I started getting into a lot of the American kind of hardcore, noisecore bands, Sonic Youth, Big Black, Dinosaur Jr. So all these bands, and the Velvets, obviously, Fergal mentioned them, and I hear them, that was like really life jamming. So myself and Miles is my cousin, used to come over to me every weekend and just saved up and bought guitars. And I think he got a bass guitar from, there was a band called Candy Shop, I don't know if you remember them. And Miles was a neighbour with the bass player, and he sold his bass guitar, so I just fell into playing guitar. So I suppose just listening to Julie and Niamh there, how they were so terrified and nervous playing. We were kind of the opposite when we played the Underground. Like, musically, we probably weren't that great musicians. We just didn't give a fuck. When we went out on stage, we just felt like we could do anything. And, you know, we kind of wanted to challenge the audience. And, you know, we just play and we do like 25-minute songs. And some people absolutely despised us. But the people who loved us stuck with us there. And, you know, so yeah, that was it. I just remember the Underground. We couldn't get a gig anywhere. Like I think we played our first gig in this goth night club, The Source. And we literally played to an audience that they were all on the floor, and we went on. They just disappeared. They just stood around the side of the wall. It went terribly. So we tried to get gigs with other Dublin bands, but they all asked for the same thing, and we got a demo tape. So we didn't have one, but one of us came up with the genius idea of using someone else's tape. We tried to do the most obscure band we could, and someone suggested Pop the League itself. He went on to be quite well known, but at the time, nobody knew. We stuck 5 of their tracks on the set, and went down to the Underground. I vividly remember 4 of us went in, and it was like late afternoon, nobody in the place. Walked down the steps completely apprehensive. He said, if he run with us, that's it, we'll never play here again. And we could hear down the back of the hall, you know, glasses, tins, injectors out the back. And he comes out, he's quite an imposing figure here. And he came up to us and we said, we're looking for a gig, here's our tape. And he just looked at us and said, when do you want to play? He didn't even ask us. So he said, 4 weeks time. We got the book out, he said, I'll give you a Thursday night. So that was the start of our Underground journey. And yeah, it's just, I think we went on to play maybe 6, 7 gigs there. I remember standing at the top of the stairs watching people coming up the street saying they're going to come in, aren't they? Or, you know, you're like every person counted because it's such a small venue. But yeah, it was a brilliant scene, and seeing all the guys here, saw join. I was pressed into doing emergency lounge by one night. I was so busy. Jeff asked me to do it, so when I seen obviously, I saw a house more in the back end than the underground. But I remember seeing the wood there as well. So yeah, it's great to revisit those kind of memories tonight.
Yeah, but what was interesting about you, and now I'm really curious about, you know, who your audience were, that you were getting up on stage and thinking, we don't care. You know, was that a performance style you'd seen from other bands, or was it just, you know, what you mentioned, that gang mentality? You find you're trying and you kind of feel that you're invincible. What did it feel like to be doing that really confrontational direct performance?
I felt amazing because I kind of grew up, I think I've written about this before, you know, where I grew up, there wasn't a lot of hope to get a job in the 80s. People talk about Dublin now. Dublin was a grim place in the 80s, really grim, and where I came from in school, we were basically told, you know, you've no chance of being anything. So get into a band and then to get up there and command and all that, and just to be who you want to be, it's just incredible. So yeah, it was, for me, it was just it kind of brought me out myself. I was quite shy as a kid, and when I was in that band with the other three lads, you mentioned the gang mentality. It was just a performance, and we didn't care, you know. Obviously we wanted people to like us, but we didn't really care. We used to see people leaving, walking up the stairs, like it didn't.
We all, like, everyone wants to be the like, but we weren't willing to change anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Oh, I'd like you to change that little higher, so fuck off.
Yeah.
I'm not changing it, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. But it's like, and just what Paul said about like Dublin was a really good place, and it was like, oh, yeah. And everyone's leaving, there's no jobs. There's no jobs, and the heroin, and fucking, just grim. And I suppose the underground to me was like this little white that we used to gather down and just I used to go down at night. I just seen 2 bands, 3 bands, 10 bands, you know, people, I don't know what you have these 10 bands. Yeah. 2 minutes to go. The next fucking rockabilly band is on. But yeah, and it's just, oh, we really wanted to do this, and just like I said, we didn't want to change anything. Like, forget that, even tiniest, smallest band, think the best band in the world.
We actually, the 80 was reminded me there this evening. It was one, I think it might have been our first gig in the underground, and as we were still in school, we would have told everybody that we were playing in Dublin in the underground, and so the word had kind of got around, and without us even, you know, controlling it, a bus was organised for all the students, and then the teachers knocked on as well. So we actually managed to fill the underground with all our student friends and teachers, and nobody else could get in. Yeah.
That, you know, just and again, all of these conversations. Please, you know, all of these people are incredibly talented. They've created art that's meant so much to me during my life. So, you know, support these bands. I don't have to say that, they're well worth supporting, spread the news. But Paul's point is really important. The underground wasn't a nice club. Please don't think that we were sitting drinking our baby shams, you know, thinking, isn't life grand? Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, posh, crisps. But you know, Dublin was great. Like, there wasn't a lot of hope. You didn't think you were going to get a job. Like, the immigration. And Jeff was quite an intimidating young man. Like, he was a big guy. It wasn't, hey, you know, would you like to play? It was like, why do you want to play? You know, you get him on a good day, but you get him on bad days. But just having that place where you could go and see other bands, or where you could perform, you know, clearly meant so much to most of us here.
It really did, yeah. As I said, it was in 1996, I'd say I was in every night, just when I saw hundreds of bands. But some bands that went on to do other things, some bands that went on to do other. But it's all, each one is as good to me as there's something to go and to do and to be, you know, involved with. Which is great.
What a great note. Thank you so much to